Our credit is impeccable. Our savings are in check. We have zero debt, but in this market, we cannot compete.
Housing, or shelter, is one of the most basic human needs next to water and food. With that in mind, why is it so difficult for most people to get a home?
There are families who still have steady, good-paying jobs, but cannot find a home.
Well, despite what many news outlets may tell you, the main reason isn't actually that complicated. There are actually two reasons that work together to create the perfect yin and yang of homelessness. There's not enough supply, and private firms are buying up affordable housing and renting it out. Let's talk about problem number one, supply. The United States is short 6.8 million homes, and that number is only rising. Now sure, this lack of construction is partly due to supply chain problems caused by the pandemic, but this started far before the pandemic. It's mainly caused by the simple fact that building housing is really expensive. Getting the materials, gathering the construction workers, and maintaining the job site is very difficult, meaning that the process of building a home is something that's reserved for the wealthy. Since it's only reserved for the wealthy, affordable housing is very unlikely to be built at all. It is much more profitable to build luxury condos in estates than it is to build affordable housing. Take New York's most recent housing development as an example. It's nicknamed Billionaire's Row, and for good reason. The condos there are some of the most expensive in the world, with the penthouse of Central Park Tower costing over $250 million. The thing about these luxury developments is that most of them are completely empty. Billionaires are buying them and just holding them as an asset. It's a smart investment too, especially in Manhattan. Your home values are only ever going to go up. Problem number one is only exacerbated by problem number two. Private firms are buying up as much housing as possible to convert it into rentable properties. There is a growing trend in the United States for private investors to buy up homes and rent them out. If you don't believe me and you'd like an example of this happening, take someone we've talked about before on this channel, Charles Koch. The moment that the pandemic hit, Koch real estate investments rapidly dove in to begin buying up housing. Since 2012, this one company has acquired more than 30,000 homes, and that number is growing. Not only that, but he also bought an ownership stake in a landlord technology company named SmartRent. This company from hell allows landlords to install smart locks, thermostats, and security cameras, all controlled by them. Now, I would like you to imagine a world where every time you lock and unlock your door is recorded by the company that owns the lock. Then that record is sold to advertisers in order to more precisely target you. You actually don't even have to imagine that, because that very thing happened to Jeffrey K., who discovered that his landlord had installed a smart hub from SmartRent in his apartment without his knowledge or consent. 20% of all rentable housing in the United States has been converted to what they call smart apartments, and that number is only growing. Charles Koch and his company from hell are only one example of this practice. Many other companies like D.R. Horton, Invitation Homes, and American Homes for Rent are engaging in this practice. Renting out suburban homes is proven to be so profitable that companies are bidding tens of thousands of dollars above the asking price on homes for sale. More than 200 companies across the United States are doing the same thing. These firms don't only buy up existing housing in America, they are building new housing. However, they are building housing with the intention to rent it out. There's a huge growth of what is called built-to-rent suburbs across the United States. These are entire suburban communities that are built by a single developer that then rent them out, essentially making home ownership in these communities impossible. Built-to-rent communities like this one in Arizona make up 6% of new homes built in the US in 2021. However, that number is expected to double by 2024. Home ownership is the number one way that a family can accumulate wealth in America, and that dream is being denied to the latest generations. I'm sure you've heard that home ownership among millennials and Gen Z is at record low levels. The most prevalent narrative being pushed as to why that is that young people simply prefer renting. Now, I don't have any statistics to say that that's not true. I'm sure they're out there, but I don't think that I need any. It's said that the American dream is homeownership. Going deeper than that mythological guarantee is that people want stability in their lives. During the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs and their income. Because of this, hundreds of thousands of people across the United States got evicted and homelessness skyrocketed. To curb this, the CDC implemented an eviction moratorium so that people wouldn't become homeless because they lost their job to COVID. However, after lobbying by the Koch brothers along with other real estate investment groups, on August 26th, the Supreme Court overturned the moratorium and evictions have returned to sky-high rates. My point is that people don't want to exist at the whim of a landlord who can raise their rent. Homeownership offers a lot of stability that most people want in their lives. Young people aren't renting because they want to. They're renting because homeownership, the very thing they've been promised their whole lives, is almost completely unattainable for them. Alright, I've been talking for a very long time about why our current system is bad. We know that it's bad and that it needs to change. So what is the solution? Well, there are two in the running. There is the libertarian solution and the socialist solution. The libertarian solution is one pushed by a reoccurring villain as well as most liberal and conservative outlets in America. This solution looks at how America is zoned, which is a huge problem, but their solution isn't to improve zoning, it's to ban it altogether. People who have played a game like City Skylines and The Sims know what zoning is. It's when you highlight some area for residential, some for commercial, and some for industry. This concept came about during the Industrial Revolution. Steel mills would just pop up in the middle of residential communities, displacing tens of thousands of people in the process. Zoning laws were introduced to stop this from happening to great success. It's estimated this innovation in policy has saved millions of lives, but as you can probably guess, this innovation was used to make a profit by another industry. As I touch on in this video, zoning laws are used to make car-centric neighborhoods as well as promote exclusively single-family construction. This practice of making huge separate sections of residential and everything else is called Euclidean zoning. It was also used to segregate communities across America. This should not be understated. America's zoning laws certainly inflate the price of housing and constrain the supply. However, getting rid of zoning completely would be a disaster. Although it may bring down the price of housing a little bit, it would also make communities completely unlivable. We're seeing the effects of this in Houston, which abolished all zoning. Not only did it create a bunch of weird images of single-family homes next to skyscrapers, but the deregulation has made Houston significantly more prone to flooding. What the solution actually does for people like the Koch brothers is allow them to set up shop and extract resources wherever they want, even in people's backyards. The anti-capitalist solution I propose is very simple, and other countries take part in it with great success. That solution is called public housing. Public housing gets a bad rap in America, and I can see why it does. American public housing is often ugly and unappealing, and the living conditions are borderline inhumane. This housing is also offered to very few people who need it. Those that do qualify for it often have to check boxes that can be almost impossible and deadly. Things like quitting drugs cold turkey, which has a high chance of putting you into cardiac arrest, as well as maintaining a job while you're homeless. Both of these things may sound easy to you sitting on your couch, but being homeless is a deeply traumatic experience and they're almost impossible to complete. All these factors have given public housing a bad name in America, but it doesn't have to be this way. Look at the country of Austria and their capital Vienna, which this year ranked as the most livable city in the world for the third time in 5 years, has had a very successful housing program that's been in practice for almost a century now. 60% of their population lives in government-owned housing, and that number is only growing. In this city, inhabited by almost 2 million people, rent costs no more than 20% of your income, no matter what your income is. This housing is afforded to anyone who wants it, rich or poor. Not only is the housing good-looking and affordable, but it also gives you a lot of amenities included in this price. Things like access to public transport and utilities. Not to mention, a country like Austria provides you with free healthcare, something the United States definitely doesn't do. These things are not guaranteed in that $1,319 price tag. This solution also gets rid of Euclidean zoning. Since zoning is managed by a democratically accountable government, it's in our interest to make neighborhoods walkable and enjoyable, rather than create the unwalkable hellscape we have today. There are a lot of myths out there about public housing. Keep in mind that these myths are spread by people who have a financial interest in public housing not being built. Shelter is the most basic human right. America is the wealthiest nation on earth. It surely has the resources to guarantee housing for all. The mass construction of public housing will also bring about investment into communities and a lot of well-paying jobs, as well as updated infrastructure, which is something America desperately needs. We've seen what happens to a country that has completely unattainable housing and rent. In 2008, we saw a huge housing bubble and a subsequent crash that left many people bankrupt and generally caused a lot of suffering. The same people that caused that crash before are back at it again because they weren't held accountable. If nothing is done about this looming crisis, then we're going to see another crash. It's inevitable. Capitalism is a system that's built around crashes and recovery that leave the wealthy few on top and the poor always on the bottom. Rather than leaving housing up to the wealthy few, it can be managed democratically by the people. Affordable homeownership is supposed to be the American dream, and we've only seen it become more and more unattainable. We've gotten to a point where the American dream is more attainable in Austria than America. I'm not gonna lie to you, things look dire, but we can't lose hope. Movements are made up of people, so don't be an armchair politician. Encourage your local representative and city to look into rent control and affordable housing. You'd be surprised at how much power you have on a local level. Join your local DSA, go to a protest. Voting isn't the end-all be-all, but still go out and vote, it's important. Maybe pick up some socialist books and educate yourself on potential solutions to the problems we face every day. Whatever you do, don't be a passive participant. That's how change never happens.
A rich man's world.